Hello, everybody. I'm Daniel. I'm the founder of Startup CPG. Hello to everyone watching us on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe. And I really want to thank our friends at Belmark for joining us today. We had the opportunity to kick off a really wonderful partnership with them earlier this year. And the reason that they got on our radar is because just over and over again, the people who I really trust in the industry, which is a lot of the fractional operations consultants, scale up agencies, just kept mentioning Belmark. Anytime someone would ask a question about, pouches or whatever, they're just like these, like talk to these guys. And we were able to get to know them, and it's just been so great to work with them because they help the community so much. Cody is in our Slack channel every single day. Just like if he can help a brand, great. If he can refer them to somebody else, he does that as well. So these are great people to know, and they are absolutely the standard bearer in these categories. So we were really excited just to do a 101 with them today because I don't know a lot about this stuff, so I'm going to be learning alongside you guys today. I've done different kinds of packaging also, but not even specifically these three, so I'll be learning a ton here today. So we've got Scott and Cody. I'm going to pass it over to them in just a second, and then I'm also really excited that a little bit later we're going to have Andy Kurtz from Buttermilk Creative also. What's up, Andy? Who is just one of our most trusted design partners from the community who works a lot with this kind of packaging, and he's going to give us some design tips as well. So I'm going to pass it over to you guys, Scott and Cody.
Awesome. Thank you for including us on the webinar today. Hopefully, our goal coming out of this is to provide everybody with just a high-level understanding of not only some of the different package options, but the process at which going from concept to getting to retail. Okay. I've been with Belmark for a little over 20 years now, and have experience working with startups, working with mid-sized companies that are privately held, working with some of the larger publicly traded companies. But what I love doing is helping, smaller companies, mid-size, go from a concept, something that is their love, and getting it to the market and trying to help them along the way so they can get to market and make sure it's successful. All right. There's a lot that goes into it. So hopefully today we're going to uncover a lot of those things, give you some tips and just things to think about as you're starting out. And then who I'll introduce you to next is Cody, who is obviously in your Slack channel and helps you along the way as well.
Hey guys, it's been really awesome since I think November is when we first launched our partnership with Startup CPG. Just the information that community is able to share with each other and help each other on all kinds of different things when you're looking for different, whether it be ingredients, packaging, lawyers. It's really an awesome platform for that. It's been great. I've gotten to know so many people, help them out, get to learn a lot more from the industry. Kind of think, working with Daniel, sometimes some things rubs off on you too. So he's been quite an influence on us. So been trying to follow his lead as well.
It is consumer packaged goods. You got the packaging part double clicked.
Awesome. Well, Cody, I'll follow your lead here, and I'll go through the tutorial. I gotta join you, Daniel, but again, this is meant to be collaborative. So as you have questions, things that you're curious about, things that you're being challenged with, please put them in the chat because we want to make sure that your questions are answered. But today what we're going to talk about is three of the main types of packaging that you're going to run into. And the first on the left side of your screen is labels. You may hear pressure sensitive labels, you may hear labels, you may even refer to them as stickers, all right? But typically the industry is going to call them pressure sensitive labels, and that's a material with an adhesive on the backside that is going to be applied to a container, okay? The second main type of packaging is a pouch, okay? You may hear the word stand-up pouch, you may refer to it as film, you may hear the term flexible packaging out there. But a pouch is a second option. It holds your product directly inside the material and then is typically sealed with heat to provide barrier and a strong seal. And then the third is a folding carton. Okay, so we're not talking about corrugate. We're not talking about a shipping box that's going to show up on your front porch from Amazon multiple times a day, I'm sure. I'm talking about like a cracker carton, maybe a cereal carton, or a beverage carton in a 6-pack or a 12-pack. Now, while these are the main types of packaging that we're going to be talking about, these are the typical variations that you're going to see as you're going into the market. What we also understand is packaging is your first impression with your consumer. And it's like the uncle that shows up at the hospital and they're going to meet their niece or nephew for the first time, and they show up in a pressed suit, right? They're showing up that way because they want to make an awesome first impression. And that is no different with, I'm sure, members of Startup CPG, right? So as you are rolling out in the market, there's a lot that goes into it. And oftentimes there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of anxiety and stress about it. And the first impression is real. And the reason why we know that is because data tells us that 72% of all Americans say that packaging will determine what product they buy. All right, so again, 72% of Americans say that packaging influences their decision on what product they're going to buy. And packaging is your earliest touch point with a consumer and your brand. All right, how it looks, how it feels, how it differentiates out in the market. And it's really important, and there's a lot of pressure there. The other dynamic of it is it's your first impression, right? And you want to capitalize it not on whether they grab your product, but also how it interacts with them, because you want them to keep coming back and buying your product again and again. That's the most important thing. So it can be overwhelming. And what you're trying to avoid are the natural packaging flaws, right? You're trying to avoid an issue or concern with performance or function. If you're putting it into a pouch, making sure the consumer can tear open the top. Making sure the zipper is going to reseal so you don't have product spilling out in a bag or a purse or whatever it may be. The other dynamic that you have to think about is how much do you order, right? You're rolling this product out, and not always do you get an exact forecast and commitment on volume. So how much do you order? You want to avoid ordering way too much, but do you not order enough? And what are your lead times when you have to order more? And are you going to be able to react? Those are things that you have to really play with. Again, avoiding a poor consumer experience and frustration with the package, and making sure it functions the right way and looks as professional as you possibly can have it on the retail shelf. Because the last thing you want to do is lose credibility, because you put your heart and soul into this product, right? And you've developed it and you've gotten to this point, and this is your opportunity. And we need to make sure it's successful. So getting to the retail shelf is the end. It's the end goal, right? But there is a lot of hard work and steps you need to take in order to get there, in order to make sure you can make a winning first impression. And this is when I kind of look to just the core guiding principles of what to think about, especially when you're getting going, okay? And the first step that I always think about is just, where do you go for help? All right, you got to take a step back and think about who aligns with your needs based on where you are today and where you want to go, and who can help you navigate your growth journey. Because where you are today isn't necessarily where you want to be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and multiple years from now. So who can set you up for success, compete on the retail shelf, and allow for you to navigate the dynamic as best as you possibly can, right? And there are companies out there that are very, very large who you can partner with, and there's companies that are really, really small. And there's companies that specialize in ultra high volume and ultra short run. But where you are and what your needs are really is going to determine which direction you go. So who you align and who you partner with is really, really important. And then where you get there, that's when it comes down to, what do you need, right? How do you want to package your product, and how do you want to go to market? And do you want to put your product into a container? Is it clear? Is it plastic? Is it white? Is it black? Are you going to put a label around it? If so, what is the size of that label? How do you maximize the footprint of that container to maximize your marketing space? If you're going to put it into a pouch, how do you make sure that pouch aligns with the footprint on the retail shelf? How do you make sure the size is correct for your product so you have enough headspace to seal it? If you're going to do a folding carton, how do you make sure that's sized appropriately to your product so it fits in your cases, so it fits on the retail shelf? Or maybe you're going to do something where you're going to have a combination of all three, right? And when you're going to do that, how do you make sure all three of those components match each other for color? So when your brand is out on the retail shelf, you have that consistency that everybody can see and know that it's your product, right? So then you get to size. You have to size it. You have to make sure it's all correct for not only the functionality of your product, but also for what's going to be going out onto the retail shelf, because you're going to have certain parameters that you're going to hit as well. And then it comes down to the conditions that your product is going to go through from a distribution requirement. Is it going to go into hot temps? Is it going to go into cold storage? Is it going to go in and out of a freezer? Is your product a powder and it's going to require higher moisture barrier needs? Or do you need high oxygen barrier for your product? Those are things to consider as well to make sure your product stays fresh and you have the shelf life that you need. Then you get into the look, right? The aesthetic part. So from a material, do you want your product to be a bright white? Do you want your package to be clear where you can see through it and actually see the product through the package? Do you need it to be metallized, right? And have metallic elements to it? And then what is that thickness of the package? What is optimal? And then do you want to do different things to make it a little bit softer or make it a little bit stiffer? And that's where you get to that first impression and the feel element for the consumer. And then what I know Andy's going to talk a little bit about coming up here shortly is from a graphic end. How do you take your vision of what your brand is going to look like and translate it to the package and design it in a way where it can be produced in a consistent and repeatable manner, right? Incredibly important. Once you have that settled, it comes down to when do you need to be on shelf, right? And what are your volumes you're looking at? Are you starting with sampling at a Whole Foods? And if that goes well, you may get a small amount of shelf space. Are you going to start at a regional level? And then depending on how that goes, it may go national. What does that look like? And how are you going to put yourself in a position to react to your immediate need? And then what may follow? But ultimately, it's setting yourself up for success and mitigating risk. And what I can't stress more than enough is the importance of maximizing your flexibility so that you can react to what the market is really dictating to you. I think from a supply chain standpoint, you want to make sure that you're reacting to the market versus being dictated to on what you need to order or when you need to order it, because the world works in a way where the market's going to tell you how quick you're going to grow. And as brand owners and brand owners that want to grow, you want to say yes, and you have to align with people who are going to give you that ultimate flexibility. Okay.
Scott, let me just ask you one question, because I saw a few people asking, like, hey, what about packaging for cookies without preservatives? Like, probably in those instances, they're talking about pouches.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of us, if you're starting a brand, you don't even know what it's going to go in. You're like, I want to do a cookie. What could work for that will be food safe and where it'll last long and give me flexibility. In a lot of instances, it'll be, like flexible packaging or like a film or something. How would people even figure out like what the options are in that instance? One, obviously you can check out the shelves of a grocery store and see what people like you are in.
Yeah, so you can check out what's being used out in the market, right? But then it's, where do you go? Because there's a lot of different options, and there's people who just make the flexible packaging, and there's people who just make the folding carton, or people who just make the label. But when you look at a product that is going to need that shelf life, like a cookie product, it could be something where you drop it into a bag, and then that goes into a folding carton. So a bag in the box, right? It could be something where you're dropping it into a bottom gusseted stand-up pouch. Okay, it could even be where you look at peel and reseal. So think about like the Oreo cookie package that's out on the market, where you can peel and reseal it, where you put them into a tray and then it goes into a film and there's peel and reseal functionality to it. But in the end, you're absolutely right. You need to design that package where there's barrier. And then at a co-packer level, typically you want to get all that air out of the package and seal it to enhance the amount of barrier properties that that package is going to give you. So it's the packaging dynamic, but then the co-packer. And that's where I think aligning with somebody who truly understands it and is going to hold your hand and walk you through that process is really important. And then when you establish a structure that's going to work, you want to maximize what you can get out of it with your co-packer or at your own facility. And that's where that company has to have packaging engineers that will work with your manufacturing hub in order to put you in a position to maximize what you can get out of that package. So there's a lot of different options. There's options that are that have different price points, that are more complex to manufacture. But I think it's important to talk through each of those for sure. Okay. Hopefully that answered the question, Daniel. So as we go, that's kind of the guiding principles. And then it comes down to really understanding what you need. And I want to start with a cool story on the pressure sensitive label side of things. And the first story we'll talk about is actually a startup CPG member in Chow Pappy. All right, so Chow Pappy, part of the startup CPG community, which is awesome to be able to talk about. But as you can tell, this is an example where you have a marinara that's going into a glass jar, and it was elected to package it with a pressure-sensitive label. And here you can get the look and feel that you want through graphics. You can see the product and how fresh it is and how great that looks like on the store shelf. From a functionality standpoint on a pressure sensitive label, you're going to get your ingredient deck, your nutritional panel, you'll have your barcode on there. You can also do a lot of different things to differentiate, through graphics. You can have part matte and part gloss. You can have soft touch feel to give it more of a tactile. You can do embellishment elements where some of it is raised and some of it is not, to give that feel and interaction with the consumer when you're working to engage with them. But a pressure sensitive label is awesome when you're getting going and you're packaging your product into a rigid container. In this case, it's a glass jar. Think about a bottle for craft beer or a can if you're doing a 12 ounce or a sleek can. Same thing for a wine or a spirit bottle. Protein powder. So think about the big containers of protein with a pressure sensitive label around the outside, vitamins and supplements. The other thing to think about is a label can also be applied to a flexible package. So let's just take your example for cookies, for example. Let's say you're putting them into a stand-up pouch and you have 20 different flavors of cookies, but you're just getting going. Well, rolling out and setting up all 20 items can be a lot. So sometimes, and you see it a lot more in like coffee, but what they'll do is they'll print a standard flexible package with their brand, and then they'll differentiate it with a clear pressure sensitive label on the front of that package. An awesome way to have a really high-end brand look, and then differentiate by SKU with a pressure sensitive label on the front that just kind of blends itself into that package. Okay, so there's different options like that that you need to look at too.
One interesting thing that I saw over the last couple of years is a little bit of creative use of labels. I personally, on beverage cans, am not a huge fan of labels just because the digital print technology has gotten so good. But like, if you look at the brand Gia, they actually have done labels in a pretty interesting way where like they don't cover the whole can. You like have a label for part of it. I've seen that on a couple where they're just then starting to actually like utilize the can itself, and then the label doesn't look funky because usually the problem with a label in a can is that it doesn't cover the whole thing. But now they're like strategically blending their label structure into the can.
Yes.
It's cool stuff, right?
Yeah, and to your point, when it comes to cans, digitally printing on cans, those minimums have come down quite a bit as well to give people the opportunity as they're going to print on cans. But when you can blend it into the package, it allows for a lot of really cool differentiation too, especially when you're getting going. Okay. As we move forward and when you do it right, the product can fly off the shelf. So an example of Chow Pappy, which is awesome, is in the picture, there's no product on the shelf. It's not awesome because they need to replenish it, but at the same time, you're seeing success. And what I love to be able to see is when a startup company can go out to retail and maybe on a budget that isn't quite as significant as the large consumer product companies out there, you can go to market with a really high-end product and you can differentiate on the store shelf and you can win, right? But you got to do it the right way and take the right steps and look at what those options are. And that's where aligning with people who understand those options and who can scale you is really important. So when done the right way, your product can absolutely fly off the shelves, just like what Francesca describes here.
This label is beautiful. I've seen it off of just like just on the print by itself. It's amazing, really sleek.
Cool. The second style package we're going to talk about is pouches, or again, flexible packaging. So this would be like a stand-up pouch. Okay, so a stand-up pouch is going to sit on the retail shelf. As you can tell, some of the images have a hole in the top where it can actually hang on a peg in the retail environment. So you have a lot of different options as to how you are going to show the product in the retail environment. But it's incredibly versatile, right? It can stand up, it can be a fold over, you can put side gussets into the pouch. In terms of functionality, you can have reclosure zippers, you can have pour and lock type of spout. So if you're going to have a liquid, you can have a spout into the pouch to pour the liquid out. Or if it's a powder or sunflower seeds, you can have a pour and lock zipper to pour that out. You can have a slider zipper. So there's all sorts of different options and zipper options, even Velcro that you can use to enhance the consumer experience. From a pouch standpoint, you can throw it in your purse, you can throw it in your bag. I know kids love to have them because they're throwing in their gym bags as they're going off to school for snacks. And then there's also sustainable options as well. So a lot of the materials will have PCR content built into the materials. And then there's recycle ready type materials as well, or eco ready, that can be part of store drop off where they get converted into park benches or playground equipment for plastic. So some cool options there, but really good for almost any industry, awesome for high barrier type applications or non-barrier. Coffee, for example, nutraceuticals for whey protein, pet foods, and snacks. Okay. Do you have a question, Daniel?
Yeah, well, I'm just seeing it. Yeah. So just seeing all the customization that's possible. Here's a little like preview into how my brain works. I would just be immediately terrified. Like, should I have that hole in the middle or not have the hole in the middle? How would I know if I need that or not? Like, if I don't have it, nobody can hang it up on a strip. Like, but do they do that? I don't know. How do people make those kinds of decisions?
Yeah, and then so it's dependent on how you're going to market your product. Is it going to go onto a hang hole or not? And sometimes you put it in just so you have the flexibility to go either way, right? And that hang hole is being put in when you are making that pouch, okay? And once you make that pouch, if you want to put the hang hole in later, it's not the easiest thing to do. So you want to do it up front. And then there's different, you can have just a circle hang hole, you can have a sombrero hang hole. There's some different sizes that you can go off of as well. And that kind of depends on what the look you want. But if you want ultimate flexibility where you can peg it or you can put it on the store shelf, my recommendation would be to put it in, because if you don't and then you want it later, you have an opportunity, you have inventory that can go onto a peg, you're going to want to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then another question that came in is, have you seen any unique pouch designs, like different shapes or textures?
Yeah, so let me start with textures first. So textures can either be done with a coating or it can be done with the actual material. Okay, So if you like some of the pouches you'll see out there that are soft touch, that have a really soft feel to it, that gives it almost a tactile nature to it, that's an actual film that's typically being used. And then you can use different coatings to have dual finishes next to it. So there's without question options when it comes to different feels and textures you can have with your package, playing within the world of matte and gloss as well as soft touch. And then the other thing, especially with clear pouches, is how do you have like a soft touch feel to your package, but then a really clear window so you can see your product, because that's important. If you're going to have a window, you want to make sure you can see that product through. And then the second question to shape pouches is, technically you can almost make a pouch into any shape you want. That is when you're forming the pouch, you have a tooling die that is making a custom shape. Okay, so if you want it to be in the shape of an owl's head, you could technically do it. That's going to be custom. There's an expense to buying that tooling set, but those options are there. And then it would be aligning with, okay, what die options may be already available that I could take advantage to maybe have a slightly unique shape to differentiate. Okay.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I see a lot of questions coming in the chat that's like, what about like finding a design? Like, how do I actually get this thing to be? You're showing me a lot of options. How am I gonna like pick one of these things and even really know what's out there? So it seems like a couple things. One, if somebody wants to talk to the Belmark team, they can probably go through in more detail. If you're like, okay, show me all the pouches, show me 30 different options. So if you guys want to just see more options, I would reach out to them. And I know we'll go through Cody's contact info in a little bit, but I'm just putting that into the chat right now. So if you want kind of a one-on-one with the Belmark team to talk through any of these options, just email Cody. So that's in the chat right now. And then the other is about designers. Okay, so like I know the options. How do I like? Um, I think in the old world, everybody would have just been, I don't know, Googling a designer. In the new world of us and Slack, I think a lot of people would be asking in the startup CPG Slack, who's a good designer, or maybe finding a brand or asking a brand that they know who's a good designer. But definitely, I would recommend people ask in the Slack if you're looking for a specific kind of designer. And also Andy is going to talk in just a few minutes. So that should answer some of the questions. By the way, if you guys have like questions you think we're missing, feel free to put it into the actual Q&A, because we'll try to circle back to all those at the end.
Yeah. And then the last option would be a folding carton. Okay. And a chipboard folding carton, again, is typically used as almost multi-use, where it can be used as a shipper as well as a display cart on the retail shelf. So a lot of times what you're seeing is the cartons on retail that are holding a 12-pack of beef sticks or meat sticks or a 12-pack of candy bars or nutraceutical supplements. But the awesome thing about a folding carton is the materials are all 100% recyclable. So you can throw it in your blue bin at home and you can recycle it at the end of your driveway, and it's a non-issue. There's a wide variety of paperboard materials. Same thing, you can customize it however you want to do it through graphics to differentiate your brand. You can get the same tactile embellishment feels, you can get the soft touch feels to mimic what you're doing with pressure sensitive labels and flexible packaging. So really this is good for any type of product across any industry. You see it a lot with coffee pods, nutraceutical type applications, stick packs, snacks, craft beer, is where you're really seeing it. And probably to your questions you're getting, and I'll hand this over to Andy to kind of talk through, is you have the packaging side that gets spec'd out, and then you have your vision for what you want the graphics to be and how do you make that come to life, right? So I'll turn it over to Andy and let him talk about how that process kind of flows.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So I've been lucky enough to work with Belmark for a few projects. And I've also been lucky enough to actually visit Belmark in Wisconsin and go on a press check. Their new facility was, I think, open for about 6 months. So it was like brand spanking new. And it was so cool to see. I have a print background. I worked at a print shop right out of school. And so I love being back at the print shop, and I love the smells and seeing the I mean, it's literally like a Willy Wonka, Rube Goldberg sort of situation when you see this stuff running. And it's, they've got little machines running around like feeding paper, and the press is so sophisticated. The press that ran the job we were working on, that changes that normally would take maybe, I don't know, uh, a, 100, 1,000, whatever sheets to run through the press to make a color update only took like 50. And they were just, it's so dialed in, so sophisticated. It was really cool. They can do plate changes, which normally would take an hour or so. They could do those in 15 minutes. So it's a great facility. I can't say enough about it. And they're also great collaborators and partners at the beginning of the project. So just to walk you through some of these. So the one on the far left, Plantinas, this is a funky project because they're sort of proving out an idea, which are these pots that have embedded RF codes or RFID things in them, basically chips. And they didn't really have a way to package them initially to prove it out. So they worked with Belmark to be like, hey, we've got this weird shape. Like, what can we do? They suggested, what about a label? We can do this sort of like rigid stock that can go around. They helped work on the dimensions of the label based on how many pots we're going to stack there. They gave me a die line that I could follow. We talked about what content's going to be sort of facing right side up, what's going to be flipped upside down. And then from there, I was able to make it, produce it, or design it, and then they were able to produce it. The next one is an example of flexible packaging, a stand-up pouch bag. And Belmark worked on this one as well. This one's cool. So I know I'm tiny here, but when we started working on Belmark, or working on this project, we were like, hey, what are all the options that we can do printing foil colors? And the rep there was like, say no more, fam. I'm sending you the Trident Max binder, and you can look at it and you can literally see like, okay, what is going to be 80% coverage of white to sort of show a sheen versus 100% white versus 20%, 25% white. So I know this is really small, but I mean, that's the links that the team goes to make you understand, because how do you know what a color on silver foil is going to look like without seeing an example of it? And they just did a great job of walking us through. We even did these like experiments where we did on this particular bag, as we were working on it, on the left side, we were like, all right, this is 10%, 15%, 20%. We did different opacities of white, and then we picked which one was going to give us the most shimmer, but also give us the most color value, color saturation. So again, they're just an awesome team to work with, because we were like, we have this thing that we need done. We want this result. How do we get there? The design is in our mind. How do we get it out there, produced in person? And then this other one is a gable box. You can't really tell from the visual here, but a gable box is a box that's not straight on top. It has like a point at the top. And this one in particular has foil printing, which I know Belmark does. And so again, there's ways to, like, this didn't break the bank. It's a pretty standard printing, but we added that foil touch to really give it that elevated feeling, and really step it up, visually on shelf. So again, like, I just can't speak enough about the great team there, and the process is, I said this in the chat, like, the sooner you can get a print vendor on board with your designer, the better, because then we're designing against print specs and we're designing against parameters, and we're not down, like, right at the end of approving the design, and it's like, oh shit, we can't produce this particular effect because the printer can't do that. And just creating that relationship early on will ensure that the project will be a success.
Andy, the third one, the Piedmont Pennies one, is
Yeah.
that a carton from Belmark, or?
That is not a carton from Belmark.
Okay, someone had
I was
asked that in the
confused.
chat.
We did pouch bags for Piedmont pennies from Belmark,
Oh,
which
okay.
is really cool.
Cool.
They also have it. See, you can sort of see that shimmer to them. And we did the same thing. We worked with the team there to
Cool.
figure out, all right, the white needs to be opaque, the pennies needs to be a certain shimmer color, gold color, and then the actual pennies also. So, but I know Belmark can do what we did there. I did print these blue zones. This is actually the project I went on the press check for. And do you see that? Like it's got that spot gloss on the bowl, which was really cool effect that they can also do.
Oh,
So,
cool.
so yeah, so
That's cool to hear. And I like the pouch approach for Piedmont Petties better because I'm going to eat the whole thing if I open it. So I would rather
yeah,
it be smaller so I can control myself.
yeah,
It's so good. Cool. And I mean, probably everybody can hear it, but like it's cool to know a designer like Andy who knows a lot about packaging because like there are some designers who probably are just going to like give me the die line, okay, I'll do it, and there are others who think pretty critically from a sustainability perspective and really understand the different packaging materials and what's possible to printers. So it's really cool that we were able to have him here
yeah,
talking about some projects today.
for sure.
And I just, if you want to talk to him, I just dropped his email into the chat also.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I did notice a few questions while Andy was talking and just kind of scanning through it. I think Cody was trying to knock off a bunch of them, but a question came up a few times, I think, about who supplies the die line, right? And I would say from our end, typically how we do it is every project that comes through to us or every opportunity. So a lot of these questions about I have a cracker and I need to make sure it's going to hold up. What are my options? Or I have a product that requires a specific type of barrier. It's going to go into a really high heat environment. What is going to be the solution for that? First and foremost is it's going to go into our teams and you're going to be paired with an engineering group that is going to size and spec that out. And I almost look at them like our checks and balances. Okay. They're going to make sure that your material is going to perform for the application. If there's a high level of concern about breakage and things like that you find with cookies and crackers and other types of products, we're going to run tests and we're going to run stability and we're going to make sure that's going to work. And once all that's locked down, we would go to Andy with the actual die line, right? And this is the die line that we're going to use, and this is what we're going to run to. And then Andy's going to take the artwork and he's going to work with it within that die line, within specific print specifications that we would also provide to him. Right. And you need that in order to make sure that when you do go to press and you produce, it's going to fall within the specifications within our tolerances from a producer, but also at your co-packer level, right? Because those are the two areas you need to assign tolerances. I know there was a question about I have graphics that is the top of my package falling to the bottom of one and the bottom of the artwork on one package falling to the bottom of the other. That's one where when you build the template, you build in what your tolerances are right from the beginning, all right? Because there's tolerances when you print, and then there's tolerances when your co-packer is cutting each package. And you need to account for that and have specific graphic bleeds to eliminate that issue. So all that is very solvable. You got to think about it or be surrounded by the right people to think about it for you right in the beginning, because obviously you can see it come up in the finished product. So template for success, find a partner, right? Find a partner who, based on where you are and what resources you have, who can hold your hand through that process. All right. Incredibly, incredibly important. Okay. In the very beginning, you are determining what the optimal size is, what the functionality of your product is going to be, what barrier properties you need, if you need it, so that by the time you're getting to the point of moving forward artwork, you know what that material is going to be, what the size is going to be, and you know it's going to perform out in the market. Okay. When you finalize artwork, again, this is where that die line is being sent to your designer. Okay. And a lot of times, either if you have your own design team or if you need referrals, we can absolutely provide those referrals to you to work within the budget requirements that you have. A lot of times what we do for people is is we have a launch program where we're doing printed samples and prototypes, especially for new products and product extensions. If you're going into a meeting or you're going out to Expo West next week and you want 20 or 30 and you want to start small, there's options there where we can give you a printed pouch or carton or label. The other thing I can't stress enough is testing and qualifying, okay? As you're going, if you're going to be running a pouch at a co-packer or a vertical form fill and seal film and putting cookies in it, run a printed template trial roll, all right? And ship it to the co-packer, and the co-packer will run it and make sure all the panels line up correctly, make sure the package seals, make sure your product fits in there right. We do that for every application that's running automated to make sure we don't have an issue on the back end. Placing a commercial order based on what you need, you know, and that should be based on truly what you need when you need it, and then react to what the market is dictating to you with quick lead times and flexibility. And again, the path to growth is not just perfectly linear. You know, you're going to have ups and some downs, and you're going to be sitting here at 2:42 in the afternoon, and then all of a sudden at 3:30 an opportunity pops up, and how are you in a position to say yes, right? And that's where you have to have partners that are going to help you get there. So I know this was really high level. It's hard to go into the weeds on everything because there's so many different options and iterations. I know our team can, without question, help guide you into the right packages, whether you're talking a carton, a label, or a film, or maybe a combination of all. You know, with the time we have left, would love to answer questions that are out there and challenges people have run into.
I think a good one to start, just because I see this being asked a lot in the chat right now, is about working with you guys, minimums. Like, hey, I don't even have anything in the market. Can I get something? Can I get a test package from you guys? Can I get 1,000 of them? Or what are the minimums?
Yeah, so overall we have none. So we can produce as few as one, and we can scale into the millions. And we have capabilities really to take you from concept to just a sampling where you want to go and show a retailer, to you have an initial startup where you want 500 or 1,000, whether you're talking a label or a stand-up pouch or even a carton. We can run those quantities, and then it's built to scale you as you go. Okay, so that's where, you know, you can start with one, and then how do you go from there is how you would be set up with Belmark.
Okay, that makes sense. And just a reminder, if you want to talk to the Belmark team, you can email Cody. I put his email in the chat here, or you can call him on his cell phone here, and he will find you. He will help you, as you saw on the graphic here. Can you like tell us anything about the cost for this kind of stuff? Like, it sounds like if you think a brand has good potential, you're going to send them a sample of their package if they want to see it that way. Like, hey, we'll send you a test print, something like that. And then if I want to order like 100, 1,000, 10,000, like how much should brands be budgeting for that kind of stuff? And how do the price breaks work as you then get to like 100,000?
Yeah. So it depends what package style and format you're going with and what the quantity is. So if you're looking for a few sales samples, so one, you're going to start with a few handmade mock-ups just for size and fit, right? So if you're going to have a pouch and you're putting 12 ounces of cookies in there, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to generate handmade mock-ups of that pouch and send it to you with the zipper in it and everything else, so you can make sure it's fit right and all is good. Once you approve that, then you get into okay, I want to have 3 sales samples, and between artwork and graphics, you're probably looking at a few $100s. Then you go, okay, I'm going to run a small quantity of pre-made pouches, maybe a few $1,000s to get it rolled out, right? And then it goes from there. Obviously, when you are running 100 or 500, the price per 1,000 is going to be much higher than if you're running 1 million. But that's where I I talk about aligning with somebody who can help you based on where you are, because there are capabilities that are out there that are designed to help you with short run sales samples. And then there's capabilities to help you with short run digital film applications. And then as those volumes grow, how do you step it out and run higher volumes economically? So there's different levels of graduation that we look at, of how do we start you with sales samples, and then how do we start you with kind of short run digital output film to get to market. And then as those volumes grow, we scale you accordingly based on the most cost effective way of producing it.
Which is a beautiful thing, because otherwise I think people will just compromise on the thing that they order. And I mean, Scott covered this before, just about how important the first impression is and how many people buy things based off just how they look. It's true. We all know it. We all do it. You guys send us samples all the time. If it's just like some kind of crappy looking bag with, like, I don't know, like an uneven label put on it, not totally aligned or something, our team is going to be like, this business is not ready to be on shelves. Probably it's like a new idea or something, or it's not a serious founder or something like that. So I feel like just honestly having packaging that helps you make the first impression for buyers, like people who are going to decide if they think it's a high quality product, really important. Then I mean, just for consumers, I really get kind of sad when I see a lot of products out in the market where I feel like they've just chosen the wrong medium. Like maybe they should have chosen different kind of packaging because what they're doing doesn't work, like the printing's stretched or it just doesn't work. And ultimately, like, you as a consumer can pick that thing up and be like, oh, this is a low quality product. It's not like one of those products that you can just trust, that are like established and well known and nice, and it will impact the, like, how the thing tastes. So like any founder can tell you this, but don't think that like people will discover the true you inside of the package and love you anyways despite the package. It's not true. Like, appearances, I would much sooner take stronger packaging over stronger product, just because it matters so much on how people perceive the product too. Cool. So I think we actually got a lot of the questions addressed here. Do you mind flipping just back to the contact page for Cody? Guys, if you have any other questions that you want to throw into the Q&A here, if you feel like I'm sure we missed a couple as we were going along. We had a couple hundred people on here, so sometimes it's hard to go into a very specific question, but we do have some time here in case you guys have specific ones. I saw one coming in that was, do these work for frozen? I think the answer is yes, for the pouches. Trying to see if there are any other. Cody, I don't know if there were any specific ones you were getting that you thought would be worth sharing the answers to.
They were coming pretty rapid fire, so I was kind of in the zone on there. I've seen some of you have been reaching out to me already through the website, through the email. So I will be responding to you guys as quickly as possible. But yeah, keep the answers coming. We'll keep the questions coming. We'll have answers for you.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to get into some specific questions just because we're still here and they're coming and we got these guys here, so we might as well. But if these now specific answers are not helpful for anybody who's still on here, feel free to disengage. Okay, so one question that came in is about the kind of printing. Is it digital? Somebody also had asked, like, where do you guys manufacture? And I think the answer is you manufacture everything in-house in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so we have a campus in Wisconsin. We have a plant in Phoenix, Arizona, as well as a plant that's being built in Kentucky currently. Okay. And then we have digital capabilities. We print flexographically, and then on the folding carton side of our business, we print offset.
Okay, here's a good one. Could you explain your quality process for ensuring consistent print quality and color accuracy throughout production, from somebody who has experienced problems with that with a different printer?
Man, I wasn't expecting that level of
detail. There's a pro,
David,
yeah.
But it's all good. Yeah, so one, I would say from a graphic and print consistency, it starts up in graphics, okay? So the file has to be set up right. You have to print and have files to the specs that are going to be repeatable for what you can do out in production. Once we get out to production, within Belmark, we are very analytical and we run to the numbers. And with every single material that we run and color we run, we have a profile established where we are going to run within that standard. And our technology allows for us to control color in line, okay, where color will naturally adjust as we run back to the center line. So let me take folding cartons, for example. When you approve a proof, one, we proof it out to you, and that proof is going to be color accurate, all right? When you approve that proof, we go, and our first run up is going to be to match that proof. As we run, every sheet is measured. And every 10th sheet, we adjust color back to the center line, which has taken our overall defect rate across our entire operation, whether you're talking print, folding, gluing, whatever it may be, to 0.3%. So it's about as tight as you can get. But from a color control standpoint, when you're measuring every sheet and adjusting every 10th back to its center line, your variation is very, very tight. Our press operators are all trained to run to the numbers. All those numbers are detailed through the testing that we do up front. If we're falling outside of that, that job is going to be pulled, or that order is going to be pulled. It will be tweaked in graphics. So when production goes back to press, they're going to be running and hitting that proof. That is the only way, running to the numbers, that you can have repeatable and predictable output. Okay, so whether you're talking about folding carton, whether you're talking about a digital film application or a higher run pouch project, that same principle is going to apply. All right, you're going to run to the standards, and that will allow for you to have a very consistent and repeatable output. Okay.
Okay, great. Same person asked, do you have a compliance review team to like verify designs meet FDA requirements, and also mentioned Canadian guidelines? I'm guessing it's probably not your responsibility, but maybe you'll surprise me.
Yeah, so it's all the specifics is changing so much. We don't have teams that are fully up to date on every single intricate type of dynamic. We have certain information we provide, but part of it in terms of those changes are really up to the brand owner. And then we do have a regulatory team that is in place just because of the ever-changing world with regulatory requirements that continually to pop up and change.
Yeah, and you can always post for things like that in the Slack if you're looking for a lawyer or compliance specialist to review labels. Always good to do that. And just a reminder, like they're going to tell you a lot of things, and then you can decide how much risk you want to take in different areas. So it doesn't surprise me that, because there is so much gray area there of like, well, technically it's not allowed, but everybody does that, and then that can change and everyone can start getting sued for it. So it's good to have a specialist in that area who is seeing what all the lawsuits have been in the last 3 months even. Okay, how important is it for packaging to be made in an SQF certified facility versus FDA safe?
Yeah, so at Belmark, we're SQF, okay, level 3 certified across all 3 of our facilities. To answer the question about the difference between SQF versus food safe, and get into the weeds on that, I'd probably have to delegate that and have Cody work with our regulatory group to get really into the weeds. But the beautiful thing about SQF is, you're being produced on equipment and processes are in place to assure the food safety of your product. And at Belmark, about 75% of all the packaging we produce is specifically for food grade applications. The rest of it, a lot of it is nutraceutical and beverage. So running to SQF standards and being SQF certified allows you to really have the peace of mind that who you're aligned with from a packaging standpoint, that product is going to be food safe, it's in a controlled environment, and you're going to have everything in place that you need.
All right.
One more question, Daniel, I've gotten a couple of times. Scott, can you talk a little bit more about our different eco-friendly packagings? I've had that one happen a couple of times in here.
Yeah. So this would be tied to flexible packaging. So think of pouches. So one option is what is coined as eco-ready. So that would be a polyethylene to polyethylene based material that can have high barrier as well. And what happens is that package, so let's say you have a package of cookies, high barrier, it's in an eco-ready structure. I go out and I buy your product and I go back to Target and I drop it in the store drop-off bin. That gets collected and then that gets converted into park benches and playground equipment and things like that. The other option that's out there is what we coin as true impact, where it's a post-consumer content structure, okay? And a specific percentage of that structure is going to derive from post-consumer types of materials. So you're reusing milk jugs and Coke bottles and things like that in order to engineer that film for the end use. That does go into a landfill. However, that package is derived from post-consumer materials that makes it up. So those are the two there. There's also label materials like on glass jars where the adhesive can be separated from the container. So that can be recycled. There's requirements where if you have a polypropylene label on a polypropylene bottle, that can be grinded up together and recycled. And then on the folding carton side, and then on the folding carton side, all those materials are fully recyclable in the blue bin. So hopefully that answers your question. At the same time, as you're looking at those options, our team can, without question, specify and provide those options to you to evaluate on what you want to do and what works best for your brand.
All right, amazing. I think we got pretty much everything. Again, if you guys have a more specific question, these guys will answer it for you. They're very nice. You can email them. Email Cody. He's used to getting peppered with questions from our community. This is like the kind of partner that we really cherish the most, is one who's just so committed to educating early brands the way that we are. And probably everybody who's on here, you can see why we like to partner with Belmark, because they are there for you at day one or day zero before you're starting, and they want to start helping you in those early days and then help you to start scaling up, because we know how hard it is to just get that early stuff done and kind of, elbow your room onto shelf to see if you can actually, have a go for it and grow and everything. So we really appreciate you guys coming, embracing the spirit of the community with your hats as well. And I really appreciate all the questions from everybody and all the engagement. And I think, there's a lot more that we can do. We can go deeper into some of the pouches and all of that stuff. And definitely feel free to hit up Andy if you have questions from the design perspective. You can see he definitely knows his stuff as well. Thank you, Andy. Andy, if you can just drop your email one more time into the chat, that would be awesome. And
one quick question I did see in here, and I think Cody did touch on it. Somebody asked the question of putting text or content information in the zipper area, or maybe even above in an area that could be removed on the pouch. Okay. My only suggestion there is anything that is critical that needs to stay on that package, make sure it's below the zipper. Okay, because if you have a tear notch and you're going to tear that part of the package off, that will be gone. So if there's any information that needs to be left behind on the package, make sure it's below the zippers. So when the consumer's at home, they have that information. I saw that in there. I think Cody kind of answered it, but that's another one where I've seen people having really important information above the zipper, and then we catch it, and it's a
and the die lines always have that, the safe areas where the zipper is. And also don't forget, when you're doing pouch bags, have fun with like the bottom, the gusset. So Becca with Piedmont Pennies put Stay Cheesin' at the bottom, and you put QR codes down there. And she did have something, I can't see what it was because I tore it off, but it wasn't important. It was some kind of like brand tagline that she had at the top. I tore into this and I ate these pennies, like Daniel said, in one bite.
yeah.
But yeah, like it's a place to put fun stuff, just like on the gusset.
All right. Thank you, everybody. If you want to meet with the
Thanks,
Belmark team,
everybody.
they'll be at Expo. Andy, you'll be at Expo too. Feel free to hit these guys up. And